A service dog barked continuously at a stroller in a busy mall. The mother became angry, security was summoned, and shoppers grew frustrated. But when the blanket was finally removed, what they witnessed moved the entire crowd to tears. Before we begin today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories about police dogs like this one, remember to subscribe. Prepare for what's about to unfold. The Westfield shopping center was filled with the usual weekend shopping activity. Families with strollers filled with bags, teenagers gathered around the food court, and a continuous blend of 1,000 conversations filled the space under the large glass ceiling. Afternoon sunlight shone through the skylights, creating warm areas on the polished tile floors as shoppers moved through the busy walkways between stores. Jessica Winters navigated the Saturday crowd with a practiced and efficient manner, her steps deliberate and measured. Beside her walked Echo, a Belgian Malinois wearing a professional red service vest with medical alert patches. Unlike the hurried shoppers who bumped shoulders and moved around each other, Echo moved with military precision, maintaining a perfect heel position despite the chaos, his attentive brown eyes occasionally glancing up at Jessica's face to check her status. "Excuse me, please," Jessica said as they moved past a group of teenagers who had stopped suddenly to take selfies in front of a clothing display. She kept her right hand lightly on Echo's specialized mobility harness, not because she required the physical support that day, but because the connection helped her feel stable amidst the overwhelming sights and sounds of the mall. The holiday decorations had already been put up, even though Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away. Large silver and red decorations were suspended from the ceiling, and artificial pine garlands adorned the railings of the second-floor walkways. A faint piano version of Winter Wonderland played from afar, struggling to be heard over the noise of the crowd, the sounds of conversations, squeaking stroller wheels, and periodic announcements from the mall's public address system. Jessica glanced at her watch. It was 2:17 p.m. She had planned this trip carefully, arriving after the lunch rush but before the evening crowd descended. Her mental checklist was almost finished. New running shoes, the birthday gift for her niece, and one more stop at the bookstore to pick up the novel her book club was reading next. Then she could return to the quiet sanctuary of her apartment before the familiar tension in her shoulders escalated into a full-blown anxiety attack. Echo stayed calm and composed, his training clearly visible in his deliberate actions. He didn't behave like typical dogs who might investigate spilled food or react to appealing smells. Instead, he concentrated entirely on Jessica and any possible dangers to her safety. When a young child unexpectedly cried at a store called Toyland, Echo quickly assessed Jessica's response, prepared to offer deep pressure therapy should the noise upset her. Fortunately, this was a positive day. Jessica reacted with a slight flinch, then proceeded walking with a deep breath. The central court of the mall appeared before them, a circular space featuring a decorative fountain and benches for weary shoppers to rest. Jessica guided them toward the quieter path along the perimeter, avoiding the congested group of people observing a weekend product demonstration. Echo modified his speed seamlessly, guiding their path as though he and Jessica functioned as one unit within the crowd, their synchronicity stemming from countless hours of shared experience. Jessica had not always required Echo's presence. 5 years ago, she was Staff Sergeant Jessica Winters, a combat medic with the 4th Infantry Division, recognized for maintaining remarkable composure amidst the most severe mass casualty events. She had treated wounded soldiers under fire, stabilized blast injuries in helicopters, and once performed an emergency airway procedure during a sandstorm with almost zero visibility. Her commanding officers had described her as unshakable. Then occurred the roadside bomb outside Kandahar. Jessica had been the first to respond, treating 3 critically wounded soldiers while awaiting medevac. She had rescued all 3, but the 4th, her closest friend on the deployment, had died despite her desperate efforts. The consequences were stark: traumatic brain injury, shrapnel wounds to her left leg, and the unseen wounds of PTSD that ultimately proved more debilitating than her physical injuries. Returning to civilian life had become a minefield of triggers. Crowds, sudden noises, certain smells that instantly transported her back to the worst moments of her service. She explored therapy, medication, and support groups, but none provided complete relief until the VA's service dog program paired her with Echo 3 years ago. Echo was a unique service dog. This Belgian Malinois had been removed from a military working dog program, not due to a lack of skill, but because of his gentle nature, a characteristic that made him ideally suited for medical alert duties. His specialized training encompassed recognizing the minute biochemical alterations that foreshadow Jessica's panic attacks and seizures, a complication stemming from her TBI that occurred infrequently but posed a significant risk. He is observing your body chemistry, the trainer had clarified during their placement. Variations in your respiration, minuscule perspiration, and even alterations in your walk that you won't perceive deliberately. Echo will provide a warning before you are even aware of an issue. Their bond had developed past the boundaries of training. Echo possessed a remarkable skill in evaluating risks in Jessica's surroundings, differentiating between minor anxieties and real threats. He would position his body to shield Jessica from anything potentially triggering, whether approaching strangers or sudden movements, while largely remaining unnoticed during everyday interactions. Above all, Echo had restored Jessica's independence. Prior to this, she had rarely left her apartment, neglecting medical appointments and withdrawing from friends and family. Currently, she volunteers twice weekly at the VA hospital, has restarted her nursing education, and can navigate public spaces like this mall, still challenging but achievable with Echo's consistent support and alerting abilities. Many people didn't realize that beneath Echo's calm professional appearance lay a dog capable of detecting incredibly small chemical shifts, changes undetectable by human senses or medical instruments. His alerts stemmed not only from excellent training, but also from a complex biological detection system combined with steadfast loyalty. Jessica directed Echo towards the central court fountain, intending to cross over to reach the bookstore on the opposite side. As they walked past a row of benches near the fountain, Echo's demeanor shifted, his ears pricked forward, his head lifted slightly higher, and his gait lost its fluid rhythm for a brief moment. Jessica noticed it instantly, having spent 3 years together. Even the slightest changes in Echo's behavior registered like alarm bells. "What is it, buddy?" she murmured, scanning the area for potential triggers. Echo's attention had fixed on something ahead and to their right. Jessica's attention followed his gaze to a navy blue stroller situated next to a bench. A woman, seemingly in her 30s and with dark hair styled in a loose bun, was organizing shopping bags nearby. The baby in the stroller seemed to be sleeping calmly under a thin blanket featuring cartoon elephants. Jessica softly adjusted Echo's harness, trying to get his attention. "Come on, focus." However, instead of following her instruction, Echo's body became even more rigid. A soft whine came from him, a sound Jessica had seldom heard from her well-trained service dog. Echo moved closer to the stroller, abandoning his heel position for the first time in public that Jessica could recall. "Echo, heel," Jessica instructed more sternly, feeling a blush rise on her cheeks as a nearby elderly couple looked in their direction. Service dogs were meant to be unobtrusive in public spaces. That was the expectation. Echo had never deviated from protocol in this way before. The dog obeyed with evident hesitation, returning to her side while still watching the stroller. After 3 more steps, Echo stopped abruptly, firmly placing his feet and declining to budge from the stroller's line of sight. "Is something the matter with your dog?" the mother inquired, observing Echo's focused attention. Her voice carried a trace of irritation as she looked between her shopping bags and the service dog. "I'm sorry," Jessica started, but Echo interrupted her apology with a quick, forceful bark that resonated across the central court. People shopping turned towards the sound, their faces showing a mix of curiosity and disapproval. "Control your dog, please," the mother stated, her annoyance now clear. "You're frightening my baby." However, the baby hadn't moved at the loud bark, a detail that Jessica's training immediately recognized as odd. Typically, sleeping infants would react with a start to such a sound. Echo barked once more, then again, his barks becoming increasingly urgent. It wasn't aggression. Jessica understood Echo's behaviors completely. It was an alert, mirroring the pattern he exhibited when sensing a potential medical crisis. "Ma'am, I believe," Jessica began, but the mother interrupted her. "Service dogs shouldn't bark in public. the woman retorted, rising and moving defensively toward her stroller. You need to leave. Two mall security guards, both wearing navy blue uniforms, moved towards the disturbance. The taller guard, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, and a name tag identifying him as Wilson, spoke to Jessica. Ma'am, we've received reports of your dog causing a disturbance for shoppers. Is everything all right? Echo continued to bark, pulling towards the stroller with unusual focus. Jessica felt as though many people were watching her, judging, and presuming she lacked control over her service dog. The demands to apologize and depart were intense, yet Echo's actions conveyed a contrasting message, one that years of collaboration had shown her to be reliable in interpreting. My service dog is medically trained, Jessica stated, working to maintain a composed tone. He is specifically alerting to something concerning regarding that baby. This isn't typical behavior for him. The second security guard, a younger woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, approached the mother. Ma'am, would you please check on your child, just to be cautious? This is absurd, the mother protested. She's fine. Simply taking her afternoon nap. I'm only shopping for less than an hour. Wilson frowned, visibly uneasy with the circumstances. Ma'am, he addressed Jessica, service animals are not permitted to be disruptive in public spaces. Mall policy dictates that. I'm aware of mall policy, Jessica responded, her voice revealing the influence of her military training. Echo wasn't issuing this alert arbitrarily. He was detecting a medically significant issue. Echo had now activated his complete medical alert sequence, sitting stiffly, vocalizing with a characteristic 3 barks, then pawing the ground. This was the same pattern he exhibited when identifying Jessica's rare seizures in advance, a behavior that had prevented serious injury on multiple occasions. Look, Jessica stated, referencing her medical experience, I served as a combat medic. Echo is programmed to recognize specific medical crises. There's an issue with that baby, and each moment we spend debating could be critical. Jessica initially encountered Echo on a rainy Tuesday at the Patriot Service Dogs Training Center in Colorado, recently completing intensive therapy and still using a cane for her left leg. She initially doubted a dog could achieve what medication and counseling had not. Instead of the warm welcome Jessica anticipated, Echo approached her cautiously, deliberately sniffing her hands, her legs, and her breath. He then settled directly in front of her, his eyes fixed on her face as if committing every detail to memory. The turning point in their partnership occurred 3 months into their training. Their initial period had presented difficulties. Jessica's fluctuating symptoms required Echo to identify patterns that even medical devices sometimes failed to detect. The team utilized scent samples gathered during Jessica's pre-seizure states, anxiety attacks, and normal days to train Echo to distinguish between them. Subsequently, one evening, while Jessica was having coffee with her roommate, Echo abruptly initiated his alert behavior, remaining rigid, emitting 3 distinct barks, then pawing the ground. Jessica felt well and initially attributed it to a training mistake. Echo, settle, she commanded. Instead of following instructions, Echo had turned to her roommate, Diane, repeating the alert pattern with increasing urgency. Maybe he needs to go out? Diane suggested, rising. She had taken 2 steps when she collapsed to the floor. Paramedics later confirmed she had experienced a dangerous blood sugar crash that could have resulted in a coma if she had been alone. Echo hadn't been alerting for Jessica at all. He recognized Diane's declining glucose levels, a condition she hadn't received a diagnosis for at that time. Following that day, Jessica's faith in Echo became unwavering. Whenever he provided an alert, she responded, irrespective of whether she experienced any symptoms herself. That established history of trust is what provided Jessica with the assurance to maintain her position now. Although met with skeptical looks and the mother's initial hesitation, Echo had gained her confidence through demonstrated dependability, and she was committed to supporting his warning, regardless of any awkwardness. A small group of people had assembled, whispering amongst themselves. An older woman approached. Perhaps you should examine the baby, dear. It's better to be cautious. The mother's certainty lessened a little as she looked at her child, who remained perfectly still. She claimed to be a deep sleeper, but a note of doubt entered her voice. Your baby hasn't reacted to any sounds, Jessica remarked gently. Not even a flinch at Echo's barking. That wasn't typical behavior for an infant. The mother's face changed as she processed this. She turned to the stroller, her shoulders showing strain. Please, please, Jessica said, her voice becoming more gentle. Echo has never been incorrect about a medical alert. Not in 3 years. My concern for your daughter prompted my request. The security guards looked at each other, appearing uncertain about the appropriate procedure for this uncommon circumstance. Wilson approached the stroller. Ma'am, may we briefly examine the situation? He asked. Then everyone can resume their activities. The mother paused, then agreed, moving towards the stroller. Very well. I'll demonstrate that she is simply sleeping, and then I anticipate an apology. Jessica remained behind, ensuring Echo stayed calm as the mother bent over the stroller and carefully pulled back the blanket with the elephant design. The woman's annoyed look quickly changed, and color left her face. Madison, she said, her voice growing louder. When the baby didn't react, she touched her daughter's cheek. Madison, wake up, baby. The security guard stepped forward instantly as the mother's voice rose to panic. She's not waking up. Tears streamed down her face as she desperately unfastened the stroller's buckles. If something's wrong, please help. Wilson quickly radioed for medical help, and his partner assisted the mother in lifting the unresponsive infant from the stroller. The baby's lips were slightly bluish, and while her chest rose with shallow breaths, she didn't respond to her mother's increasingly frantic efforts to rouse her. I'm a former combat medic, Jessica stated, stepping forward with composure. Can I assist while we await medical personnel? The mother nodded vigorously, tears running down her face as Jessica drew near. Echo remained calm, his earlier urgent alerting now replaced by watchful observation. Jessica assessed the baby's vital signs with practiced skill. She is breathing, but it's shallow. Pulse is detectable but weak. Jessica turned to the mother. Has Madison been unwell recently? Are there any existing medical concerns? No, nothing, the mother responded, stammering. During her routine checkup last week, everything was perfect. She simply fell asleep while shopping. An older man then approached from the assembled group. I'm Dr. Brenner, a pediatrician, he stated. May I examine her? With the mother's consent, the doctor rapidly assessed the infant. Pupils are responsive but sluggish, he observed. Temperature appears normal. He turned to Jessica and spoke softly. This looks neurological. How long has she been unresponsive? I don't know, the mother cried. She fell asleep approximately 40 minutes ago. She typically sleeps soundly during shopping trips. The movement of the stroller. Her voice faltered as the realization struck her. Oh God, has she been like this the entire time? I believed she was simply sleeping. Mall medical staff arrived with a first aid kit and oxygen. Shortly after, paramedics navigated the crowd with a gurney and pediatric medical equipment. Service dogs signaled to the baby. Dr. Brenner briefed the paramedics. The infant is unresponsive, but breathing. Possible neurological event is suspected. As the paramedics commenced their assessment, the lead EMT observed Echo, a Belgian Malinois medical alert dog. These dogs are remarkable scent detectors. Last year, we had one alert to a carbon monoxide victim who exhibited no visible symptoms. Their olfactory capabilities are extraordinary, Dr. Brenner stated, watching Echo with renewed respect. Certain studies indicate they can identify molecular changes at concentrations as low as parts per trillion. Finding it is comparable to locating a single drop of blood within 20 Olympic swimming pools. The medical uses are still being explored, especially for illnesses where early diagnosis significantly enhances results. Ramirez nodded as he secured a pulse oximeter to Madison's small finger. He had observed dogs detecting seizures prior to clinical signs, identifying malignancies before scans could, and even forecasting cardiac events. This little one is lucky that you and your partner were present today. Amber Parker, holding her daughter's hand, whispered, Your dog knew. How could he possibly know when I didn't? The paramedics responded with practice speed, securing the infant to the pediatric backboard and connecting monitoring devices. Paramedic Ramirez examined the readings, his expression concerned. Oxygen saturation is lower than I'd like, he observed, placing a small oxygen mask over Madison's face. These readings indicate potential seizure activity, though without convulsions. We are considering the possibility of absence seizures or a postictal state. What does that mean? Will she be all right? Amber asked, holding her daughter's hand. We need to transfer her to Children's Hospital for a definitive diagnosis, Ramirez stated. Fortunately, we are identifying this early, preventing potential oxygen deprivation that could cause harm. While a female paramedic was rechecking Madison's vital signs, she paused, moving closer to observe something. Ms. Parker, has Madison received any medications recently? The paramedic inquired. No, none, Amber replied. She has never taken medication. The paramedic indicated faint markings on the inner side of Madison's elbow. These appear to be injection sites, but they are very small, the type we sometimes see with specific medical tests. Amber stated, with evident confusion, that the only injection her child had received was for routine vaccinations during the checkup last week. Dr. Brenner examined the marks and frowned. He noted that these were more recent than a week ago and did not align with typical vaccination injections. Echo immediately became alert, focusing intently on the diaper bag hanging from the stroller handle. Jessica recognized this particular behavior. Echo had identified something significant. Ma'am, Jessica said cautiously. Would you mind if we examined Madison's diaper bag? Echo is signaling something within. Amber agreed promptly. Any prior doubts disappeared. Naturally, anything that could assist. Security Officer Wilson took the bag, and Jessica directed Echo through a methodical scent examination. The dog quickly pinpointed a side pocket, persistently nudging it with his nose, employing the method he uses for identifying substances. Within the pocket, a small medicine bottle was discovered, labeled as infant acetaminophen, though the security seal was broken and the bottle was only half full. I didn't place that there, Amber stated, her face growing paler. That's not our brand, and Madison hasn't required any pain medication. Ramirez carefully placed the bottle in an evidence bag. We'll have this analyzed at the hospital. It's possible it contains another substance or has been altered. The second paramedic spoke with urgency. Madison's oxygen levels are decreasing. Immediate transport is required. As preparations began to move Madison, Echo whimpered gently and rested his head against Jessica's leg. This was his way of indicating that his task was complete. He had identified the underlying issue well before human observation of the symptoms, potentially averting a significantly more severe outcome. Your dog is remarkable, Dr. Brenner told Jessica as the paramedics began moving the gurney. For 30 years, I have worked in pediatrics, and I observed no outward signs of distress in that child. Yet, he recognized the situation instantly. Amber, accompanying the gurney, glanced back at Jessica. Thank you, she said, tears flowing down her face. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. If you hadn't insisted, she was unable to complete the sentence. Thank Echo, Jessica responded quietly. He is the hero here. The Central Court had been converted into a temporary command center. Police officers arrived soon after Madison was transported, establishing a perimeter around the stroller. A bottle from the diaper bag was now considered evidence in what the lead detective described as a possible instance of intentional drugging. Echo remained composed beside Jessica as she provided her statement to Detective Portman, a woman with a serious expression and kind eyes who documented every aspect of Echo's warning actions with considerable interest. According to Portman, the dog identified a problem with the child prior to any outward signs of illness. Jessica corroborated this, confirming that Echo possesses specialized scent detection training for medical emergencies. He is capable of identifying chemical alterations within the body that signify specific medical occurrences. Jessica further stated that Echo specifically indicated the diaper bag after the child received treatment. She explained that he exhibits distinct alert patterns depending on the circumstances. His actions concerning the bag indicate he perceived a substance present, rather than solely a medical issue. Portman added another notation. Ms. Parker stated the baby had a checkup last week. We are investigating who may have accessed the child or her belongings since that time. Wilson arrived accompanied by the mall manager, a tense woman wearing a charcoal suit, who identified herself as Diane Reynolds. Ms. Winters, Reynolds stated, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you and your service dog for your actions today. Our security team will be reviewing our protocols concerning service animal alerts. She looked at Wilson, who appeared suitably concerned. We recognize there are some areas where we need to improve our training. Echo was simply performing his train tasks, Jessica responded. Wilson added, the hospital contacted us with an update. The baby is showing signs of stabilization. Medical tests were underway, but the doctor mentioned that a further delay in treatment could have had serious consequences, then stopped speaking, leaving the meaning unstated. A young woman who had been shopping in the vicinity approached cautiously. I filmed what occurred using my phone, she stated. I didn't mean to be odd, but my brother is applying to service dog programs, and I wish to demonstrate how they function in public settings. She then asked if the footage would be beneficial to the police. Detective Portman promptly collected the woman's contact details. That could be extremely valuable evidence, thank you. As the crowd gradually dispersed, an elderly man approached Jessica. Young lady, I want you to know I've contacted the local news. People need to hear about this, not just about the unfortunate situation with the baby, but about the incredible work service dogs like yours perform. Jessica experienced a moment of worry regarding potential media coverage, but Echo instinctively leaned against her leg, offering the calming pressure that helped manage her nervous system. She inhaled deeply, concentrating on the most important aspects. Madison was undergoing treatment, an inquiry was in progress, and Echo had performed as he was trained. The police concluded securing the area while Jessica and Echo were readying to depart. Officer Wilson approached them at the mall entrance. He offered a sincere apology to both of us. 20 years in security and I've never seen anything like what your dog did today, he said. If we'd followed protocol and asked you to leave, he shook his head, expressing gratitude for your resolve. As Jessica and Echo walked through the parking lot toward her car, the adrenaline from the incident began to fade, leaving her physically drained but mentally clear. She stopped beside her SUV, kneeling down to bring herself eye level with her partner. You did good, buddy, she whispered, gently stroking Echo's face and neck. Really good. Echo's perceptive eyes stayed focused on hers, his expression reflecting complete satisfaction now that his task was finished. He moved closer, touching his forehead against Jessica's in the familiar gesture they frequently shared following challenging situations. Jessica reflected on how she almost questioned Echo due to societal expectations, the looks, the security personnel, the mother's initial displeasure. Apologizing and leaving would have been simpler, attributing Echo's behavior to a temporary lapse. The pressure of public opinion had nearly eclipsed years of collaboration and mutual trust, but Echo remained unwavering, continuing until someone acknowledged his perspective. His conviction prevented a child from a situation paramedics believed could have been intentional drugging. The realization sent a shiver down Jessica's spine, even under the warmth of the afternoon sun. As Jessica started the engine, a text from her VA counselor appeared on her phone. It referenced the news alert about a service dog saving a baby at Westfield. Could that have been Echo and her? The counselor suggested she call if she needed support following the event. News spread rapidly. By tomorrow, reporters would likely be calling, potentially requesting interviews. Ordinarily, this would cause a surge of anxiety, but surprisingly, it felt different this time. Sharing their experiences might help people recognize the crucial role service dogs play, not only in assisting their handlers, but also in safeguarding the broader community. Echo relaxed into his seat, his alert stance softening into a calm watchfulness, ever prepared but no longer sensing immediate threats. Jessica met his look in the rearview mirror, feeling a wave of thankfulness for this remarkable animal who had profoundly changed her life and now had protected someone else. Believe in your dog. This was the initial instruction in service dog training, the basis for all subsequent commands. Recent events had demonstrated why this belief wasn't merely training protocol, but significant insight. Occasionally, a companion could detect things beyond human perception and human assessment. Occasionally, trust meant the difference between a disaster and a fortunate outcome. Have you ever observed an instance where an animal detected something humans entirely overlooked? What accounts for some animals' remarkable ability to sense medical emergencies even before symptoms are apparent? Would you have believed a service dog's alert regarding a stranger's baby, despite the potential for embarrassment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of heroic service animals. Click the bell icon to receive notifications when we upload new videos each week. Please share this video with friends and family who value the special connection between people and their service animals. Watch our previous stories about canine heroes now, and tune in tomorrow at the same time for another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The tracking dog abruptly halted at the forest's boundary, his fur bristling and a low growl emanating from his chest. "Shadow, what is it?" Sergeant Morgan inquired, securing her hold on the leash. Shortly after, they located the old house situated deep within the woods, a place where no house ought to exist, but what they found inside instilled a chilling dread. What precisely did they unearth in that neglected location? Please subscribe and leave a comment below, letting us know your location. Let's get started. Kate Morgan was loading equipment into her department SUV as dawn approached. She watched with concern as Shadow, her Belgian Malinois partner, paced anxiously beside the vehicle. Usually the dog would wait calmly during preparations, but today his strong body stayed rigid, shifting between gentle movements and focused looks at the nearby forest. At 34, Sergeant Morgan had become Pinewood County's leading search expert. Shadow, possessing his advanced certification and abilities in tracking and cadaver detection, had made them the department's preferred team for missing persons cases. The call had arrived after midnight. Jason Reeves, age 27, was missing after failing to return from his day hike on Blackwater Ridge Trail. The first search team found no sign of him in the darkness. Sheriff Donovan arrived with the rest of the team, his face showing worry. "Morning, Kate. The weather report indicates rain by afternoon. We have roughly 6 hours before conditions worsen." Kate nodded, making sure her equipment was secure. "We'll find him." Donovan observed the dog's agitated state. "What's got Shadow so worked up?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she replied. "He has been like this since they arrived." She scratched behind Shadow's ears. "Focus up, partner." But as the team gathered for briefing, Kate couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow's agitation wasn't merely pre-search excitement. In their 3 years together, she learned to read his signals, and this behavior felt different, almost like a warning. Blackwater Ridge stretched across the northeastern corner of Pinewood County like a jagged spine, dense forests climbing into mist-shrouded peaks. The search team gathered at the trailhead, where Jason Reeves's blue Subaru was parked. Kate swiftly organized the team while unloading Shadow. Deputy Torres and Chun would take the South Fork. Harrison and Lopez were to check the ravine. The sheriff and I would follow Shadow on the main trail. Kate presented Shadow with Jason's navy fleece from a sealed bag. The Malinois inhaled deeply, transitioning to work mode, though Kate observed the remaining tension in his posture. She firmly instructed, securing his tracking lead. After 20 minutes near a small footbridge, Shadow abruptly halted, his body becoming rigid as he analyzed the air instead of the ground. "What's he onto?" Donovan inquired. Rather than proceeding across the bridge, Shadow abruptly turned to the right, drawing Kate towards an embankment. 50 yards away was a forest green backpack, swiftly recognized as Jason's, containing his wallet and phone. The trail continued in that direction. Donovan indicated along the creek bed, where crushed plants indicated recent activity. Shadow hesitated to proceed, stubbornly pulling toward the apparently untouched forest. "Shadow, find," Kate repeated, attempting to guide him. The Malinois emitted a whine, pulling with unusual force, a behavior Kate had never observed during a search. "Your dog seems disoriented," Deputy Torres commented. "The path is clearly alongside the water." Kate observed Shadow's concentrated gaze. "I'm going with Shadow." A sense of unease settled over him regarding the creek trail. "We should split up," Torres proposed. "No," Kate stated decisively. "If someone is intentionally leading us astray, separating could create a risk." She addressed Donovan. "Sheriff, I request your confidence. 3 years with Shadow indicate we must follow his guidance." Donovan acknowledged. We will follow the dog. Torres, please note this location and communicate with the other teams. We will keep in touch via radio. Shadow took the lead as Kate and Donovan advanced further into the forest, moving away from marked trails and into a wilderness seldom visited by recreational hikers. The ground became more challenging the farther they strayed from known paths. Thick pine and old fir trees formed a natural maze, their large trunks limiting visibility to less than 20 yards. We're traveling northwest now, Donovan observed, consulting his GPS. There are no recorded trails in this area. This was old-growth forest, untouched by logging. After 30 minutes of consistent hiking, Shadow halted at the foot of a sharp ridge, his ears twitching as he analyzed the scents carried on the breeze. Suddenly, he bolted forward with such momentum that Kate briefly stumbled. Shadow, easy, she called, reasserting control of the lead. The dog had stopped at a seemingly neglected path, running across the ridge face. Service road, Donovan stated, bending down to inspect the packed soil hidden by the plants. An old one not listed on any maps we have now. As they proceeded down the neglected service road, Kate experienced a rising sense of disquiet. The woods appeared to press in on them, the overhead branches becoming denser until only infrequent beams of light reached the ground. This section was harvested in the 1920s, Donovan clarified, ending the quiet. Company archives document a minor worker settlement, consisting of impermanent buildings intended to be vacated upon the end of operations. Shadow guided them around a pronounced curve in the aged road and abruptly halted, his posture tense with focus. Kate tracked his line of sight and felt her breathing shorten. Situated within a compact clearing was a two-story house, its time-worn, clapboard facade darkened by age and moisture. Rather than the crumbling ruin one could anticipate following a century of abandonment, the structure seemed mostly complete, with some sagging areas, dark and empty windows, but fundamentally stable. That's not a logging camp shack, Kate stated softly. No, Donovan concurred, his hand moving naturally to his sidearm. That's someone's homestead, and it shouldn't be here. The house stood before them, its aged exterior showing the marks of many seasons. As she approached, Kate observed details previously hidden from afar. Intricate Victorian-style trim around the eaves, though much of it was decayed, and vestiges of what had undoubtedly been a graceful wraparound porch, now partially collapsed at one corner. Sheriff's Department, she announced. We are conducting a search for a missing hiker. Anyone inside, please identify yourself. Only silence responded. The forest sounds appeared subdued around the property, fostering an unsettling quiet that prickled the skin on Kate's arms. I'm seeing recent footprints, Donovan observed, indicating clear marks in the yielding ground close to the porch steps. Multiple sets, some arriving, some departing. Kate bent down to study a well-defined print. This matches the tread pattern from Jason's hiking boots, based on the girlfriend's description. He was certainly here. Adhering to the established procedures for entering potentially occupied buildings during search operations, Donovan drew his service weapon, maintaining a safe downward-pointing position. He repeated, Sheriff's Department. We are entering to search the premises. The front door emitted a concerning creak as Donovan pushed it open. The interior was dimly lit, the scant daylight that penetrated through the cloudy, undamaged windows illuminated a foyer characterized by peeling wallpaper and a dust-covered wooden floor. Remarkably, the furniture was still present. A discolored mirror leaned askew on one wall, and a former elegant side table sat beneath it, its surface covered in debris. The air inside was chilly and damp, carrying the stale odor of prolonged desertion combined with something else, something less definable, something more recent. Shadow moved carefully into the foyer, his nose working constantly, head turning to register each room extending from the central space. Deviating from his typical approach, he appeared hesitant to move forward, remaining uncommonly near Kate. Living room clear, Donovan stated, inspecting the initial doorway on their right. The connected dining room and kitchen also displayed indications of emptiness, although nothing presented an immediate cause for worry, simply decades of dust, dislodged plaster, and the minor remnants left by wildlife seeking refuge. Kate noticed someone had been present, observing the kitchen table's relatively clean spots where dust had been recently moved, and noting an empty modern water bottle in one corner. Their attention then shifted to a door located beneath the main staircase, which is when Shadow's demeanor changed significantly. The Malinois halted suddenly, his body becoming rigid as he focused on the closed door. A low growl emanated from his throat. "Basement access," Donovan stated softly. Kate observed a detail overlooked during their first search. Tiny symbols were etched into the door frame, abstract designs that seemed intentional, not mere random damage. Comparable markings were present on the floor at the threshold, subtle lines scratched into the aged wood. "These are new," she stated, bending down to inspect them, "and they're all around the door, almost as if, like a boundary or a warning," Donovan concluded. Shadow's growl intensified, his gaze firmly fixed on the basement door. Throughout 3 years of searches, building clearances, and tracking operations, Kate had never witnessed her partner exhibit such intense apprehension. Kate encountered Shadow during a difficult period in her career. Following 8 years in military police, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan, she joined the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, anticipating a less demanding role. Her initial 2 years of service concluded with a tragic, unsuccessful attempt to locate a 4-year-old who had strayed from a campsite. The child's remains were discovered several days later, just half a mile from an area that had already been searched. This experience significantly damaged her self-assurance. Sheriff Donovan encouraged her to focus on growth instead of withdrawing, and he offered her a K-9 unit application. During training, she encountered a lean Belgian Malinois. The dog's evaluation noted high intelligence but difficulty in management, along with exceptional search aptitude and inconsistent responses to commands. The trainer stated that Shadow's intensity made him unsuitable for most handlers. Rescued from abuse at 10 months of age, the previous owner had employed harsh training techniques, essentially torture. Their partnership started with challenges. A significant turning point occurred during a night exercise when Kate fell and sustained a head injury. Instead of returning to base as instructed, Shadow remained with her throughout the night, subsequently leading her along the simplest route back, accommodating her uneven steps. Now, gazing at the basement door with its unusual markings, Kate remembered Fletcher's advice about heeding a dog's instincts even when the reason wasn't clear. Shadow wasn't simply providing an alert, he was conveying a particular message regarding what lay beyond that entrance. "I'm going to trust my partner," she told Donovan, placing her hand reassuringly on Shadow's back. "If he thinks there's something important down there, we need to find out what it is." The basement door resisted initially, then yielded with a groan of protesting hinges. Stale air surged upward, carrying the distinct mineral scent of underground spaces mixed with something less identifiable, a sharp, almost metallic undertone that made Kate's nose wrinkle. Donovan observed a temperature drop as noticeably colder air surrounded them. "Feels like 15 degrees cooler down there," he remarked. A narrow, wooden staircase led down into darkness. Kate turned on her tactical flashlight, the beam illuminating a dirt floor roughly 8 feet below. Shadow remained alert, but didn't show any eagerness to descend. This was unusual for a dog typically keen to lead the way during searches. The basement proved more expansive than Kate anticipated, stretching under the complete area of the house. Stone foundation walls upheld the structure above, with hand-hewn wooden pillars offering extra support at consistent intervals. In contrast to the comparatively undisturbed upper floor, the basement displayed indications of more recent use. "Someone has been using this space," Kate noted, aiming her light beam toward a contemporary camping lantern positioned on a weathered wooden crate. Close by, a sleeping bag was carefully rolled beside a small backpack. "Search team, this is Donovan," the sheriff spoke into his radio. "We've located possible belongings of the missing hiker in an abandoned structure. Request additional units at our GPS coordinates." Only Static answered him. They systematically documented the scene, photographing the items with their phones. The backpack contained energy bars, a first aid kit, and a well-worn trail map of Blackwater Ridge with handwritten annotations. A notebook close at hand contained puzzling notes. The last one was dated the day Jason vanished. "Returning inside today, assuming the stories about this location are accurate, I should possess evidence that cannot be questioned." Shadow, who had been examining the room's boundaries while staying near Kate, abruptly tensed, his focus fixed on the distant wall. Kate instantly understood his stance, the identical alert posture he adopted when locating concealed objects during evidence searches. Shadow informed Donovan, who had been studying markings on a support pillar. The wall that had attracted Shadow's attention seemed unremarkable initially, consisting of roughly hewn stone blocks. However, as Kate drew nearer, her flashlight illuminated slight variations in the mortar arrangement approximately halfway along its length. Working together, they scrutinized the wall section meticulously, ultimately finding a skillfully hidden device, a jutting stone that, when pushed in, disengaged a latch. Accompanied by a soft scraping noise, a portion of the wall, roughly 3 feet in width, swung inward, exposing a narrow passage on the other side. This passage led to a circular room, approximately 15 feet in diameter, with a floor of fitted stone slabs. The walls displayed faded inscriptions, unknown script, and elaborate geometric designs. A stone table, appearing like an altar and bearing a dark stain, was positioned in the center. 7 candles formed a perfect circle around it, 3 of which had recently been lit, showing soft wax. The items placed on the altar were particularly unsettling: a driver's license, watch, and cell phone Kate recognized from the missing person report. These were Jason's belongings, and she documented them with photographs, careful not to move anything. The question remained, where was he? Shadow's anxiety became apparent as he moved around the room. He moved toward the altar, then retreated, conflicted by his investigative training and an intense feeling of reluctance. Kate's flashlight wavered, then noticeably weakened. Donovan's did the same. A subtle hum resonated from the walls, intensifying until Kate felt it vibrating within her. The temperature dropped sharply, their exhaled breath appearing as frosty vapor. Shadow's actions changed significantly. He settled against Kate's legs, forming a protective posture, his gaze directed at an empty corner, his fur bristling. Rather than his usual forceful barking when facing danger, he remained quietly watchful. "We must leave," Kate stated, relying on Shadow's judgment. Immediately, as they moved back, Kate's weakening light revealed one last detail: a recently inscribed name etched into the altar's edge. Beneath those others faded with time: Jason Reeves. Upon exiting the concealed room, Donovan attempted to use his radio, but it only produced the same peculiar static. Kate examined her phone. There was no signal, and the battery had dropped from 85% to 17% during their short time in the basement. A gentle thud from the level above halted them at the foot of the staircase, followed by the clear sound of footsteps on aging, creaking floorboards. "Someone's up there," Kate murmured, drawing her sidearm. The missing hiker could be this person. The main floor seemed unoccupied as they carefully exited the basement. Daylight had faded considerably. Checking her watch, she realized they had been inside for fewer than 40 minutes, but the light suggested late afternoon, not midday. Shadow suddenly became alert, his focus drawn to a small secretary desk in the corner that they hadn't previously inspected closely. The roll top of the desk had been opened, showing a stack of leather-bound journals almost neatly arranged inside. The topmost volume lay open, its pages filled with handwritten text that seemed surprisingly new compared to the old paper. Kate studied the open page, feeling a sudden chill unrelated to the basement's dampness. The writing detailed names and dates of people who've disappeared in these woods. The journal entries originated in 1893 and were written at inconsistent intervals throughout the years. Certain names were accompanied by supplemental information, including ages, occupations, and details regarding disappearances. Kate identified several entries referencing unsolved missing persons cases she had become familiar with after joining the department. Particularly unsettling was the last entry, concerning Jason Reeves, which bore yesterday's date and a specific time. 3:17 p.m. Shadow abruptly growled, turning to confront the doorway. Moments passed, then a significant crash echoed from the upper floor, indicating furniture was being knocked over or displaced. "Sheriff's Department," Donovan announced, approaching the foot of the central staircase. "Identify yourself immediately." Only silence responded, accompanied by another crash, this time directly above them. Plaster dust drifted down from the ceiling. The staircase creaked under their cautious ascent, weapons drawn. The upper hallway split into 4 rooms, the doors showing different levels of damage. Shadow guided them toward the closest entrance, his carefulness apparent in each measured step. The bedroom inside looked untouched initially, featuring a 4-poster bed with a decaying mattress, a wardrobe against one wall, and faded curtains still present at the windows. Then Kate observed the wardrobe doors gradually opening, despite the absence of any breeze or disruption that might cause the movement. Deputy Chen's voice abruptly broke through their radios, startling them both. "Sheriff, come in. We've been trying to reach you for over an hour." Donovan pressed his transmit button. "Chun, we're inside a structure approximately 2 miles northwest of the backpack location. Possible evidence of the missing hiker found. Sir, we can barely read you. Signals breaking up. Do you need assistance?" "Affirmative. Track our GPS coordinates. Approach with caution." Kate went to the window, hoping to spot the approaching search team from afar. However, she stopped, stunned by the scene before her. The area around the house appeared altered. The forest seemed nearer, thicker, the trees leaning inward, as if the woods had somehow moved closer while they were inside. A floorboard groaned behind them, though neither had shifted. Shadow turned toward the noise, positioning himself between Kate and the vacant corner of the room. The temperature plummeted rapidly, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. As if to emphasize her statement, a door slammed somewhere down the hallway. Then another. The sound of footsteps, numbering more than one person could manage, reverberated from several directions at once. "We retreated the way we had come," Donovan decided, moving toward the bedroom door, only to discover it was closed, despite neither of them having touched it. Kate grasped the doorknob, finding it intensely cold. The door rotated without obstruction, yet remained unyielding, as if a significant force held it back from the hallway. Donovan proposed examining the window, and immediately moved towards it. The old frame initially resisted his attempt to lift the sash, but then yielded with a scattering of paint chips and debris. A blast of cold rain rushed in, bringing with it the fragrance of damp soil and pine. Shadow's growl intensified, his attention still directed towards the apparently vacant corner of the room. Kate had grown accustomed to relying on her partner's instincts, especially when they sensed threats she couldn't identify. Whatever was in that corner registered as dangerous to the Malinois. Kate secured her sidearm and proceeded cautiously as a forceful impact rattled the bedroom door. The old wood fractured but remained intact. A second impact splintered the frame along one side. The fall to the ground outside was roughly 12 feet, negotiable but potentially hazardous. Kate descended from the sill, using her hands to lower herself and minimize the drop to the muddy earth below. She landed unevenly but sustained no injuries, quickly arranging herself to be in shadow. Donovan raised the Malinois, who appeared remarkably compliant with the handling, reinforcing Kate's sense that the dog detected significant danger within. Shadow permitted himself to be passed through the window, his 65 pounds of muscle momentarily suspended before Donovan released him to Kate below. Another crash originated from inside the bedroom, followed by Donovan's startled shout. Kate looked up to observe the sheriff struggling with the window sash, which had unexpectedly slammed down, nearly trapping his hands. "Something's got it," he called, straining against the seemingly immovable window. Shadow barked sharply, not an alert for danger, but his specific call for Kate's attention. The Malinois was focused on a point at the corner of the house, where weathered clapboards met in a seam that appeared to be separating unnaturally, revealing darkness beyond. "Sheriff, another exit," Kate called up to Donovan. "Meet me at the front of the house." Kate drew her weapon again, using her flashlight to illuminate the darkened passage beyond the open doors. Rough-hewn stone steps descended into darkness. The air rising from below held the same metallic odor they'd noticed in the basement. Shadow seemed to want her to go down, but everything she's felt in the house cautioned against returning. The dog whimpered, scratching at the initial step, his eagerness unmistakable. "Kate," Donovan's voice called from somewhere near the front of the house. "Where are you?" Before she could respond, A loud crash echoed from inside the house, the clear sound of a structural failure. Dust puffed out from an upstairs window as a portion of the roof collapsed. Shadow's fur stood on end, a soft growl vibrating in his chest, aimed not at the cellar entrance behind them, but toward the sound of Donovan's voice. A chilling sense of conviction settled in Kate's stomach. "That's not the sheriff," she whispered, completely believing Shadow's judgment. The dog maintained its position, preventing anyone or anything from approaching from around the corner. Kate retreated towards the cellar entrance, keeping her weapon aimed at the side of the building. Shadow followed her, continuing his protective posture. The constricted tunnel stretched roughly 20 feet before leading into what seemed to be a mechanical room, containing antiquated, rusted machinery indicative of a coal furnace system from the house's initial construction. This area, in contrast to the basement they had explored previously, exhibited no indications of recent activity. A door on the distant wall likely linked to the main basement. Kate bypassed it, opting to follow Shadow toward a section of foundation wall that had partially collapsed. The Malinois readily passed through the opening, appearing outside into thick underbrush that had hidden this gap from view. "Sheriff Donovan, come in." Kate tried on her radio, but only received static. She trailed Shadow roughly 50 yards through thick foliage before daring to look back towards the house. Through openings in the trees, she observed its outline. The partially collapsed roof was now releasing smoke despite the heavy rain. Even more unsettling was the movement she noticed at several windows, with shadows moving across them, despite the fact that they had discovered no other people inside. "Kate," the authentic voice of Sheriff Donovan interrupted her focus on the house. He appeared from the trees to her right, soaked and muddied, but seemingly unharmed. "Thank God, I thought you were still inside." Shadow's reaction verified this was truly Donovan. The dog's posture softened, his tail giving a quick wag of recognition. "How did you escape?" Kate inquired, observing a bleeding cut along the sheriff's hairline. "The back staircase gave way while he was on it," he recounted, resulting in him ending up in some kind of root cellar. "He found a storm door leading out, and then—" He paused, seemingly having difficulty expressing his experience. Something was present with him inside, not a person, at least not anymore. Shadow abruptly tensed, his focus returning to the house in the distance. Kate followed his gaze, observing what seemed to be several figures exiting the front door. They were obscured by the rain and fading light, but clearly advancing purposefully toward their position. "We need to go," she stated, her strategic mind rapidly assessing their choices. The primary objective was to extract safely and redirect backup teams away from the house. After 20 minutes of consistent travel, they arrived at the ridge line, offering a view of the valley where the house was situated. From their high vantage point, they observed several flashlight beams in the distance, indicating the search teams were closing in, following their last known coordinates. "We need to stop them before they reach the house," Donovan stated, attempting his radio once more. This time, Deputy Torres responded clearly. "Sheriff, we've been trying to reach you for hours." "Listen carefully," Donovan replied. "Do not approach the structure at these coordinates. I repeat, do not approach. We are maneuvering to block your team's advance from the ridge line north of your current location." Within an hour, they had successfully met up with the search teams and created a security zone half a mile from the house. As full darkness enveloped the forest, the decision was reached to pause operations until morning. The missing hiker, Jason Reeves, was still not found. A flickering light appeared through the trees, not a consistent beam from a flashlight, but the shifting appearance of flames. The house, despite the pouring rain, was now completely consumed by fire, the glow still visible from their location. 1 month later, Kate's office wall showcased an expanding array of photographs, maps, and notes linked by red string, representing her personal inquiry. Jason Reeves remained listed as missing with no new information. The formal search continued for 2 weeks, involving numerous agencies, cadaver dogs, and ground-penetrating radar covering 10 square miles. The search yielded no results, no body was discovered, nor any further evidence besides the peculiar house that had burned completely to its foundation before firefighters arrived. Kate attached a newspaper clipping from 1922 to her board, detailing the destruction of Old Blackwater House in a fire that claimed the lives of 7 members of the Thorne family. The article mentioned local beliefs that the property had been plagued by misfortune since it was built. Her phone rang. "Morgan, this is Torres. Regarding the research you asked for?" 16 disappearances have been recorded within a 5-mile radius of Blackwater Ridge, a number 3 times higher than what's typically seen in comparable wilderness areas. "Any patterns?" Kate inquired. "The disappearances tend to occur in clusters of 3 or 4 individuals within a few months, followed by years of no further incidents. Has anyone ever been located?" "Only one person. A Forest Service worker was discovered wandering along Highway 16 3 months later in 1978. He had no recollection of his whereabouts and was malnourished, but sustained no other injuries." Following the phone call, Kate added the details to her board while Shadow stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the photograph of the house foundation. "What did you perceive there?" she inquired softly. Shadow immediately growled, his focus directed at the window where darkness now filled the view. Kate observed a fleeting movement in the tree line, the shadows seeming distorted. She swiftly lowered the blinds, spotting a manila envelope on the exterior windowsill, a package that couldn't be reached without a ladder from her second-floor office. A single photograph lay within, showing Jason Reeves positioned in front of the undamaged Blackwater house, his expression unreadable, bearing a timestamp 3 days following their investigation. Written on the reverse in elegant handwriting was the phrase, "The house always returns. So do we." Shadow brushed against her legs as a shiver traced its way down her spine. Outside, limbs scraped against the structure, sounding like searching fingers. For the first time in her professional life, Kate wished that certain enigmas would remain beyond resolution. Have you ever observed your pet responding to something imperceptible that prompted a feeling of unease? Animals demonstrate senses extending beyond human capabilities. They perceive frequencies beyond our hearing range, scent traces too subtle for us to notice, and possibly energies that science has yet to explain. What could your dog or cat be perceiving when they abruptly pause, focusing intensely on a vacant area of your home? Do you consider that some locations retain echoes of previous occurrences that certain perceptive animals are able to detect? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section. We are eager to read your stories. If this puzzling cold case gave you chills, remember to click the subscribe button and enable notifications to stay updated with our regular uploads about remarkable dog stories. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more unsolved mysteries, and share it with those who value the unique capabilities of our canine friends. Be sure to view our additional unexplained canine encounters currently displaying. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video that explores the remarkable world of working dogs and the mysteries they help us uncover.